What's crack-a-lackin'? It's your boy Bro Schmo, just in case you did not know so. And we're talking about the Combine winners, losers. I'm going to be picking one winner, one loser from each position group. And we're going to be talking about a few prospects throughout this whole video. Not just the winners and the losers, but I'm only picking one. Sorry it's coming out so late. I should probably put it out before my mock draft, but I really wanted to get that out. And the overlays for this took a little bit, but is what it is. What can you do? Go ahead, become a bro and subscribe. Leave a thumbs up if you enjoy the content. And I got a top 100 big board coming out this week as well. I got the overlay set for that. I just gotta whip together my big board, and yeah, we'll go from there. So let's go ahead. Let's get to the nitty gritty. We're gonna start with the quarterback position, and my winner was Jordan Love from Utah State. Interviews, medical portion of the Combine is by far the most important thing here, more important than any of the drills. Typically at the Combine, the drills are the least important thing. It's really, you just want to meet the prospects and kind of make sure that everything's healthy, everything checks out. I mean, especially for quarterbacks, the tape far outweighs the workouts. You kind of already made up your mind as far as where your quarterbacks are in order. Like I said, you just kind of want to interview these guys, and during the interviews, Burrow and Love were the most impressive. But I'm telling you, they were both very confident. But Love, he didn't shy away from his dip in play in 2019. He didn't make any excuses, and I'm telling you, there's going to be a few teams that fall in love with Love, and they're going to try to trade up for him. But yeah, losers. Let's talk about Shea Patterson out of Michigan. I thought Patterson, he was going to nail the interview process. I've been saying it since the beginning of the season that he was going to interview well, and it might lead for him to be a early to mid day 3 pick. But reports are he actually did very poorly. Not very poorly. No one was impressed. Nothing was impressive. I mean, even athletically, it wasn't all that great. Or as athletic as people thought he was going to be. And it sounds like he might come out of this being a very late day 3, like a 7th rounder, or maybe even an undrafted free agent. Fromm also, because they measure these guys' hands, and hand size is kind of a big thing, and Fromm came away not looking good. So that's why you saw in my mock draft I didn't have Fromm in the 2nd round. I still think he will be a 2nd rounder, but it's kind of hard to anticipate where he might, or who might pick him up. On to the running backs. Let's talk about AJ Dillon out of Boston College. He was my winner here. When it comes to the running backs, typically these guys are looking at the broad jump, the vert. They want to see that explosion, and then they look at the 40 time because it's something nice to look at. Now, plenty of running backs, they had a good Combine. Jonathan Taylor had a really good one. Cam Akers, Raymond Calise, there we go. Guy out of Louisiana, he had a big one. He was a big mover up my board, but it was AJ Dillon who was the biggest mover for me, because I've been saying he needed a big Combine, and he ran very impressive. 4.53 in the 40. He had a 41-inch vertical, 131 broad jump, and this was at 247 pounds. That shows explosion. It shows burst. And these are things that didn't necessarily show up on his film, because he's kind of like a train. He's got to build up steam, and then he just starts molly-whopping these guys, just shedding off would-be tacklers. And it's weird because the Combine shows he might be a little better at that than we think. But again, the Combine, you got to take it by a little bit. But either way, I got a 4th to 5th round grade on him after this. This was exactly the showing AJ Dillon needed. And then my loser was Benny LeMay out of Charlotte. You could maybe throw Zach Moss here, but the guy, he tweaked his hamstring on the vertical before his 40, and his 40 came out was like 4.65. So I don't know. I'm confident enough in Zach Moss's film to not let this hurt his stock all that much. I still think he's a day 2 guy. But LeMay, he posted a terrible 40, low broad jump, poor vertical. He was a late day 3 pick for me originally going into this, but now I can't see him being drafted, where you could probably take a better athlete with a more diverse move set, or a more diverse skill set. if those guys are available. I'd rather take those guys over LeMay. He really hurt his stock here. Onto the receivers, and still you'd rather take the tape, but the vertical is what correlates, what translates better at the NFL level as far as an explosion standpoint. And Chase Claypool was my winner. I mean, he came in with added weight, and this led me to think, oh, cool, he's gaining weight to convert to tight end. And I still like that option a lot for Claypool. But then he ran a 4.42. His vertical was insane. And you hear a lot of people at the combine talking about his size and his speed comparable to that of Calvin Johnson. Now, these guys aren't saying he is like Calvin Johnson. It was comparable to. Two very different things. I know what you heard, but this is what I'm saying. It was comparable. I don't know what y'all think coming out of this thinking I'm saying he's Calvin Johnson. He is not Megatron. Because the fact still remains, on tape, he still had a hard time separating in the college level. I bumped him up to a late second rounder, but I still like the idea of him converting to tight end. Like maybe in that Darren Waller type of mold. Other guys, Brandon Ayuk, he had a pretty good combine. Denzel Mims, Justin Jefferson, they knocked it out of the park. They had phenomenal combines. They're probably going to be mid to late first rounders as well. My loser, Laviska Shenault Jr., man, out of Colorado. You could throw Jawan Jennings here too, but we knew he was a after the catch type of receiver, and you're not going to see that. That doesn't show up at the combine. That type of ability. So I don't think it hurt his stock too much. I maybe have him as an early fourth. And then Jalen Reagor, people were kind of bummed out because he ran slower than people anticipated him to. Like it was like a 4.47, still pretty solid. And keep in mind, the guy put on 10 pounds. They were talking about his 40 technique because a lot goes into the 40. I used to run track, so I know that. So I don't think he hurt his stock too much. I think he's still in that late first, second round conversation. But Shenault, man, he was by far the biggest loser for me. He had a 4.59 40, which was much lower than anticipated. He really does feel like a running back, more of a running back than a receiver. Because we know he's got the limited route tree. We know he's still raw as a route runner. And I mean, he didn't participate in any of the other agility drills. And on top of that, the guy, he had surgery. He's going to have surgery now on a core muscle that he was dealing with during the season. And it's like, that was a big red flag with him, was the injury concern. So I bumped him down a little bit, but not too much because I do love him still as an athlete. And then at tight end, a lot of things translate here. A lot of things you want to see kind of come together, and that's the size, the vertical, and the broad jump, so the explosion. And then you want to see speed, so the 40 times. So a lot of things come together here. And my winner was Dalton Keene out of Virginia Tech. There were a few standout performances, like Cole Kmet. He's probably now the unanimous number one tight end at this point. But, I mean, Keene, he checked all the boxes for me. Size, speed, explosion, strength. I mean, the limited production and opportunity is a bit of a concern there at Virginia Tech. But from an athletic standpoint, most teams wouldn't mind taking a 5th round flyer on this guy. And then my loser, Jared Pickney, which sucks. I was so high on him at the beginning of the year. It just seems more and more that he is not the same guy we saw in 2018. I mean, he was among the slowest at his position. He didn't even take part in the agility drills, which isn't a good sign. Because I know a lot of y'all probably going to be like, well, Albert Okwuegbunam, he ran like a 4.42 40. He was blazing. But he didn't take part in the agility drills. Specifically, probably for a reason, because he knew he wouldn't test well in those. He only did the one thing that he was probably going to test phenomenal at. So I'm not going to move him up my board that much just because of a fast 40. But yeah, Jared Pickney, man, he's late day 3 at this point, because you gotta believe that 2018 guy is still in there at some point, you know? You could only hope. Offensive tackles, tape is the biggest thing. So you're not going to be taking away too much. Really, measurements here is the other thing. You want those guys with those 34-inch arms or more at the tackle position. But my winner, Ezra Cleveland out of Boise State. I mean, Thomas Wirfs, Wills, Jones, Becton, they all tested well with 34-inch arms, or at least over. I know Josh Jones was really close, like maybe like I think like 1/8 off from having 34 inch. So like those guys, they had first round buzz. They weren't really going to be moving up and down extremely. But Ezra Cleveland, I think he made himself some money, because I don't see how this guy isn't a day 2 pick at this point. I mean, he's light on his feet. You could tell that in the cone drill and the shuttle drill. He tested much better than anyone expected, and it was one of the best overall tackle performances we've seen in quite some time. As long as you ain't looking at Tristan Wirfs, because he was just a freak. But we also expected that. And then my loser, Trey Adams out of Washington. I mean, you could throw Isaiah Wilson up in here, but I mean, these guys, they looked slow. They looked very unathletic. Which is kind of concerning, because are they going to be able to keep up with those athletic pass rushers that can bend around the corner real easy? Now, Wilson, he's a much younger player, and athleticism isn't always the end-all, be-all. I mean, look at a guy like Orlando Brown Jr., so you got those outliers there. And Isaiah Wilson could very much be one of those. I think he's really ideal for a play-action type of scheme. But Adams, man, he's a veteran by comparison to Isaiah Wilson. And I mean, on top of he's got a history of losing to very athletic pass rushers. So it's very it's very unencouraging. And then the medical red flags are always a big if. And let's not get to the interview, because we all are laughing at that interview. That was pretty funny. It's not the wrong answer. It was just he's an honest guy. But yeah, he was a big loser for me. And then the offensive interior, Cesar Ruiz, man, he was, I think, not a lot changed in my interior rankings, but he was definitely a winner. I mean, much stayed the same, but he was probably my biggest riser, because now I could see him maybe sneaking into round 1. But he interviewed well. His ceiling looks much higher than we expected, because my biggest concern for him was his play strength. And then he pumped out 28 reps in the bench press. And it's not like he's got short arms. He's got 33 and 1/8 inch arms. So we know he's strong. It's just a matter of turning that into functional strength, so we can see it on the football field. And like I said, probably could sneak into the first round. My loser, Calvin Throckmorton, my boy, because I love me Throckmorton. I've had this guy ranked and mocked as a guard for the longest time, probably since halfway through the season, because I didn't think he was athletic enough to play tackle. And you can get away with being not very athletic on the interior, but he's kind of came in looking like a subpar athlete. He tested probably near the bottom of most of these drills. This performance, I think, definitely will hurt him, because the Senior Bowl we could kind of chuck. They had him playing left tackle, a position he never played before, and he didn't look well. Who would have thought? But I don't know. This was it hurt. But we know he's technically sound. We know. I think he'll still be a fine player in the NFL, but from an athletic standpoint, it's always going to be an uphill battle for him. On to the edge rushers, and still you want to trust film with edge rushers, but you like to see that agility. So the 3-cone, the shuttle, and a nice 40 always helps. But my winner was Derek Tazuka. Hopefully I said that right. Get to know this guy's name. I know I need to. Out of North Dakota State. I mean, there was a few guys that really helped their stock. I think Curtis Weaver, for me, he came in looking thin. Not necessarily cut, but he was looking leaner. And I don't know why people don't think he's a first round pick. I think he is. I just don't get it. He just doesn't get a lot of buzz. Alex Highsmith, he came in looking fast, looking quick. Alton Robinson, he dominated much of the day, much of the drills. Jared Zuniga, he came in and he looked stellar, but that was to be expected. We knew he was going to be a combine warrior. But Derek here, oh my gosh, came out of nowhere. He finished, let's start with, he was an elite pass rusher, but the knock is it's in the Missouri Valley Conference. But he's never really stacked up against top competition. But he finished in the top 5 of almost every drill for the pass rushers. And I think he really makes for an intriguing day 3 pick at this point. My loser, there weren't many losers here. Like, there was maybe guys that you thought would have tested better. And if I had to go with loser, AJ Epinesa. For me, I don't think it hurts too much. I mean, he came in shedding 5 pounds, but he didn't look as athletic as he did at Iowa, which is weird because I thought he was super athletic for a 280-pounder. Like I said, I don't think it hurt his draft stock much, but I do think that teams will look at this and think he can't be a stand-up pass rusher because I thought he could be. This kind of tells maybe otherwise. Maybe he can't. A lot of teams they'll bump him down to like maybe a late first, early second, or maybe even take him off their board altogether, especially if they're running 3-4 defenses if you can't stand up. Those defenses, I don't know. It doesn't concern me too much because like I said, you rely more on the film than the actual workouts, but it is something you want to consider. And then the defensive interior, and then much like the edge class, there weren't really any losers here. Guys came in and it was a bit underwhelming to what I thought some of these guys were going to test out at. So let's go ahead. Let's get into the winner. Darian Daniels out of Nebraska. By far my biggest mover coming out of the combine. Honestly, no one came away, like I said, looking bad. But this guy, because I had him as an undrafted free agent. And for a guy that's 3'11", he looked quick. He had great movement skills in the 3-cone, in the 20-yard shuttle. I have him down now as a 5th rounder. Another guy, Laryl Murchison, he was a big mover for me. But like I said, not a lot of guys came in looking bad. And keep that in mind when I say my loser is Derek Brown from Auburn. Because probably some of y'all will be like, what the heck? I still think the guy is a top 10, top 15 prospect. He's a phenomenal prospect. But if I had to pick someone who I was disappointed in their performance, it was Derek Brown. Neville Gallimore is right up there too, but before the season, he cut 20 pounds, right? And he just didn't look athletic in these drills, in the agility drills, which you expect from a guy. Because it's a lot easier for someone who is athletic to put on more weight and remain athletic, like a Marlon Davidson, than a guy who isn't that athletic to drop weight to try to become more athletic, if that kind of makes sense. So this doesn't really hurt Gallimore's stock for me. But Derek Brown, it's just, I expected much better, you know? It looks like he lacked that explosion, that burst. I mean, I've been saying this throughout the whole season. I come in with worries because I don't think he could be an elite pass rusher from the interior. Not based on his 2018 film, not based on the first half of his 2019 film. He turned it on down the stretch, the second half of the year, but I came away from these agility drills looking at the same guy that I thought he was in 2018, at the beginning of 2019. Like I said, I still think he's a very good prospect, but I look at that and I'm like, I just don't think he'll be an elite pass rusher at the next level. Off-ball linebacker. Things that translate here, size. And then the explosion stuff, vertical, broad jump. My winner, Dante Olson out of Montana. Goodness gracious. A lot of guys had a good day, but that was to be expected. Isaiah Simmons, he was already a top 5 prospect to begin with. So him just blowing the combine out of the water didn't surprise me much. Patrick Queen, he ran well. We knew he would. We knew Kenneth Murray was an athlete. So a lot of these guys, they weren't big. It didn't really move their stock for me because it's what I expected. Few guys I did though. Willie Gay, he looked like today's modern day linebacker. Looks fast. Watch this guy. I'm telling you, he's going to rise up some draft boards. We're talking maybe that day 2 area. And then Davion Taylor out of Colorado. He kind of looks like a poor man because he's at 220. and he's converting from safety. He looks like a poor man's Isaiah Simmons, but Olsen really stole the show for me, man. The guy, he was a tackling machine at Montana. I just didn't expect him to look this good in the explosion drills. His vertical, his broad jump, these are drills that translate to the NFL. And he obliterated him. Like, it makes me want to go back and take a look at some of his tape, because it's just like, wow, I have this guy in the early day 3 mix, and honestly, he could rise a bit more. I just didn't expect this. I'm surprised. I was flabbergasted. And then my loser, like I said, there weren't too many losers either from the linebacker group, but since I got to pick one, I'm going with Zach Bond. I mean, we knew this guy was going to be a project anyway. He's a pass rusher, an undersized pass rusher, trying to become an off-ball linebacker. And I was just surprised that even in the explosion drills, which I thought he would probably be better than a lot of the linebackers he didn't really shine. He was actually outshined by a majority of the linebackers there in the explosion drills. But it doesn't really hurt. We know the prospect. We know he's going to take a little bit of time to develop, because he wasn't really asked to drop back in coverage there at Wisconsin. So I only moved him down a few spots. At corner, my winner. There were a lot. Corner was just a beautiful thing to behold at the combine, and my winner was L'Jarius Sneed out of Louisiana Tech. A lot of the top guys tested extremely well: Fulton, Henderson, Johnson, Gladney, Diggs. So they weren't going to gain too much. They were all already getting first round buzz. But basically, it was just telling us what we already knew. But my two biggest movers, Tulsa's Reggie Robinson and then Sneed. Sneed, he made the biggest leap for me. He played both safety and cornerback at Louisiana Tech. He has solid arm length, which is something you want to see. You want to see those guys with those long arms, and good size at 6 foot, 192 pounds. He had the second highest 40 of the defensive backs, and he matched Kuda in the vertical. I currently have this guy as an early day 3 grade on him. This is just a really good corner class. And then loser. This hurts my heart. Cameron Dantzler. This one hurts me a lot. And I'm more likely going to lean to the tape, because he was been a shutdown corner in the SEC for 3 years. But he ran a very slow 40. Came in with a slender build. And surprisingly, he actually had pretty short arm length. So you got to be concerned about that. Those are concerns, but they aren't like nails in the coffin. I still love the talent, and I feel just more comfortable rather than, because I was moving him up my board. I was moving him up. He was in that first round mix. He was in that top 5 mix for me, but now I'm more comfortable with taking him in the second round with those current limitations being the speed, the lack of length, and him having trouble putting on weight. And then let's talk about safety. And strangely enough, for safety, what translates to success at the NFL is the 40 time, which is kind of unusual, or at least unusual for me. And my biggest winner here is Jeremy Chinn out of Southern Illinois. Y'all gave me crap in my mock draft. I don't blame you. I had him before the combine as a 5th rounder, but y'all gave me crap about putting Jeremy Chinn in the 2nd round, which he might go in the 3rd. That's probably more likely. But he came out and looked like an elite athlete, like the type of prospect you like coaches foam at the mouth. Like, I want to get this get this clay and mold him into this perennial. There we go, superstar. Kyle Duggar, he's a big riser too. Like, I've seen some mocks put him in the 1st round. I don't know if he's quite there yet, but I definitely could see him in the 2nd round at this point. But yeah, Chinn, he just killed this off season process. He ran a 4.45 40 at 221 pounds, a 41 vertical. It was just a really good day. And then my loser of the safety group, Jalen Elliott out of Notre Dame. The dude, he had a good Senior Bowl. He was moving up boards, but he just looked slow, and he was the slowest of the defensive back class by far. It was pretty bad. I mean, he had a below average vertical. It was a very underwhelming performance. One that's now he's probably a mid to late, more likely late day 3 pick at this point. But that's it for the video. Forgot how my ending goes. That's it for the video. Go ahead and become a bro and subscribe. Let me know what your thoughts are on the combine. Who came out looking good? Who came out looking less than good? And until next time, you be easy, my friends. Later.